Welcome to the AngelsWin.com podcast, featuring Jeff Stoddard and AngelsWin.com founder, Chuck Richter. And now, here's Jeff Stoddard.
Oh, do you smell that? There's freedom in the air. It is a holiday week. And we've got baseball to talk about. Gentlemen, cheers. Happy Tuesday. Chuck, why don't you introduce everyone to our special guest today?
Guys, I'm sure you've seen his face on social media and around the ballpark. We got Taylor Blake Ward, managing editor of the Sporting Tribune. He also writes and does some features for AngelsWin.com. Thanks so much, Taylor, for joining. We've been talking about getting you on the show for a long time now, and finally you're here. We can talk amateur draft that's around the corner here in a couple weeks, and prospects, Angels baseball, whatever else. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks for joining.
Good to see you guys. Yeah, thanks for having me on. Thanks for letting me help out and contribute with Angels Win. It's, you guys are a very well-established fan site, and it's great to be able to work with you guys. And Chuck, you and I go back, and Jeff, it's great getting to know you over the years. And yeah, it's always great seeing you guys. I try, though, really well to stay concealed, create an apparition effect for myself when I'm at the ballpark.
Same.
So we all lifted our drinks. What's everybody drinking today? Taylor, what do you got?
I've got a June Lake Brewing Company special order. June Lake is up near Mammoth here in California, and we had a really good friend up there that died a couple years ago, Keith Potter. Worked in the ski industry, and that's kind of how we connected with him. His wife Dottie, really great, and just a specialty porter that they made for him, and I'm gonna be sipping on that throughout. How about you guys?
Nice, Jeff. How about you?
It open.
I've got a Gatorade Zero and tonic and Tito's vodka. Shout out to Chris Meyer in Dana Point, my Tito's vodka hookup and good friend, and big time Angels fan, by the way. So, what's up, Chris? What's up, Perry? Hope you guys are doing well and down by the beach. And Chuck, what are you drinking?
I'm doing this one right here, and it's taken me a while to find this. It's a Basil Hayden Subtle Smoke, and it is real subtle, and it's more, think of a really good smooth bourbon with a hint of smoke on the back, and not a peatiness that you'd get like from a Scotch. Think of more like a smoke from a good barbecue brisket, smoked brisket.
A whiskey you can chew on. I like it.
Exactly. So cheers, gents.
Cheers. And cheers to all of you out there listening. If you're listening, watching us on YouTube, thank you for that. Smash that subscribe button for us. And thank you all also to those of you that are listening just to the audio podcast version on Spotify, iTunes, iHeart, and all the other platforms that we're on. So today's a cool episode. Chuck, am I right? We're number 40?
Number 40.
Episode 40. Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy, dude. I mean, cool. Yeah, we're year 2 into this, and it's nuts. I mean, we did quite a few in the off season. But yeah, Victor couldn't make it, guys. If you're wondering, he was supposed to be part of the show, but South Florida's got some crazy weather going on right now, and other things that are going on in his busy life too. So he had to bow out, but he'll be on the next one. But what I thought we would do, just to kick us off on this show, Taylor, is talk about, you wrote a great piece for us today that we published on the website and then pushed out on social media, kind of like a amateur draft preview for the Angels, and kind of just highlighting some of the guys that the Angels could snag with their 8th overall pick in the first round. I don't know. I don't think anybody on this list, Taylor, is going to be available in the second round. Doubtful, probably.
Yeah.
So these are really just highlighting guys that will be available, whether the Angels decide to go underslot, and Taylor highlights those group of folks, baseball players or college collegiates, or if they, hopefully one of these guys that we've been having an eye on, that we've been talking about, fall to the Angels because maybe another team has other needs. Maybe they, in all these mock drafts, you see these players go into certain teams, but maybe they switch things up because of a player that has excelled, in recent days and weeks, where before they were eyeing somebody else. So who from this list do you really, your gut feeling today? Now, this could change a week from now, 2 weeks, right before the draft. Hell, it could change tomorrow, right? Who is your gut feeling that the Angels grab if they were drafted today, Taylor?
That's such a put on the spot. So at 3:12 Pacific Standard Time on Tuesday.
That's why you're on here, is for us to put you on the spot.
Yeah, that's with my absolute gut at this very moment, I will say Nick Kurtz. And
really, wow,
yeah, it's for whatever reason that's the guy that's on my mind. And if you ask me tomorrow, I'm probably not going to say Nick Kurtz for the remaining days until he gets drafted, whatever. But
okay,
yeah, I think Nick Kurtz is the one I feel like I'm most confident is going to be available in that group. I think he could even fall into the teen picks, and it's not based on talent by any standard. It's the first base demographic, and I put it in the article. First rounders from 2011 to 2019. If you take away Matt Olson, it's an average 0.7 WAR for their entire careers. That doesn't include Spencer Torkelson, who was drafted as a third baseman who has not, lived up to expectation.
Right.
I think it's a risky demographic, but Nick Kurtz is just such a special hitter. And he is also a really good defensive player at first base. And I think you could move him to the outfield, at least try it kind of thing. He's not a quick guy, and it would probably be left field, but I think he's a guy that I feel confident is going to be available. I think the price range is actually going to be kind of fitting with some of those guys I put underslot, even though I put him in the underslot mention. I think Nick Kurtz price-wise is going to be right around the same range. So I think, when I'm talking about safe bets kind of thing, that's the guy I would lean to, even with the risky demographic of a first baseman. But I like the player. And I put it in the article. His comparisons are pretty unfair. I think the one that a lot of people are running with is Jim Thome, and I don't think Nick Kurtz is going to hit 600 home runs in his career. I don't think he's going to hit 500 or 400 home runs in his career, but he's a good player, right? And it's like, I'm not going to sit there and say this guy's Jim Thome. And if you really look at him side by side, he's not totally dissimilar from Freddie Freeman. And I don't want to compare him to Freddie Freeman, who could be a Hall of Famer, right? So, right. You don't want to be that kind of you don't want to put that kind of unfairness on an amateur player who hasn't even seen professional baseball. But you have a foundation for that type of player, which I think is really hard to pass on, regardless of what the demographic says.
And I think it's fair, Taylor and Jeff, that the Angels would go after an impact offensive player, right? No matter the position. But somebody that you could plug into your lineup. I mean, Mike Trout's getting older. Anthony Rendon, who knows, right? I mean, you want to have somebody, and correct me if I'm wrong, he bats left-handed, right, Taylor?
Yep.
Yeah,
throwing bat, yep.
Right. So you kind of want, and Shanuel doesn't really fit the power profile, the productive type first baseman that you think of. We talked a week ago, Taylor, and you mentioned that of the two, maybe Shanuel could play left field. And especially if baseball player Taylor Ward is traded.
Yeah, I mean, that's something you have to worry about when you get there. And I think, obviously, you're going to worry about it right now because you have a guy you believe is your franchise first baseman for the next 6-7 years. And Nick Kurtz is going to be a quick mover who probably is, 2 years at the latest kind of thing moving up in this organization. So it's something you have to worry about. But yeah, I think you could at least try and move these guys. I don't think Nolan's not the best athlete in the world, but if you've seen him, I went and saw him and chatted with him a week ago. He looks good. He looks very slim. He looks very fit. So I think he's going to be a better athlete. He's running better. I've always said, I don't think I've ever seen someone run as hard and as slow as Nolan Shonwell. He's awesome. I love him. He's a total grinder who has no speed, but
Right.
I don't see why you couldn't at least try to do it. But that's something that it's a bridge you have to cross once it happens and once you get there. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. I would definitely draft as saying I'm going to take the best guy available. And in my opinion, Kurtz is actually probably better than some of the guys that are going to go ahead of him.
Right. And you mentioned 2 years, but with the Angels, with how quickly they move guys like Neto and in their first round draft picks, Shanuel, I mean, he could be with if they drafted, he could be playing in September.
Yeah, I mean, I touched on that. The urgency is not there.
Right.
Shohei Ohtani's gone. And trying to get into that winning window, or at least get over 500 or into the playoffs somehow, they were forcing some issues. And Zach Neto was a shortstop when they didn't have one. And Nolan Shonwell was a first baseman when they actually didn't have one. And Nolan was in Double-A doing things. So it's like, yeah, these guys came up way earlier than they should have or expected. And you got to give Zach Neto and Nolan Shonwell credit. I know Shonwell's not performing at a high clip, but the fact that he is a year removed from college and, keeping his head above water in the majors is really impressive for me,
right.
At least. But yeah, I don't think there's going to be this urgency to get a guy up. I think you're going to see a little bit more standard development. The Angels don't really have a standard development. They're very aggressive in how they develop players. But yeah, like you said, I wouldn't rule out him being someone that comes into spring fighting for a job next year. But at the same time, I'm saying 2 years because of how advanced the bat is and the skill set.
So if I could,
go ahead, Jeff.
So this is a great episode for a lot of the fans that love the inside baseball stuff, right? But we have fans from all over the spectrum that listen into us. Maybe you could give a 101 of baseball draft to some of the listeners real quick that kind of talk about, your methodology. How did you come up with the people that you have listed in your article, and talk a little bit about slot and slot bonus, which you've referenced earlier, and how that will play into the picks that the Angels make throughout the draft.
Yeah, you're talking to people in the industry when it comes to these players. And you're not talking about, I'm talking about 2025 and 2026 players right now with scouting staffs. And not so much, this week and next week, but the week after that, definitely going to be chatting about next year's guys and the year after that. So these are guys that the industry has known about and followed for an extended period of time. And we have followed their progress as well. You can see what they've done over the course of the spring, either at the college level or at high school level. When it comes to draft eligibility, you are either a high school senior, a junior college. You can come out anytime at junior college. But when you're in college, it's you have to be, I can't remember if it's 2 weeks or 3 weeks removed from your 21st birthday to be an underclass eligible player. So you could see sophomores and even oddly enough, freshmen that are drafted, but you have to be in an age group for that to be eligible, or a
Gotcha.
college junior. And that does, you could be early enrollment, 19 years old as a college junior. You can only be drafted 3 times. So say you were drafted out of high school, out of your junior year, didn't sign either of those years, you have to sign your senior year, or you're not going to pro ball. And seniors, depending on redshirt status, just don't have any leverage in the draft. Even if you're going to redshirt, your 5th year senior kind of guy, you don't have leverage. So you're going to see those guys sign for $10,000 to $50,000 as opposed to the $1 million bonuses, regardless of what your talent level is. And yeah, slots. So Major League Baseball over the last 15, 20 years or so has incorporated slot bonuses, and it's a recommended slot based on percentages and things along those lines as to what the 8th overall pick has a different slot that's lower than the 7th, higher than the 9th, money-wise. And you get your combined slot bonus from your 1st to 10th round picks. Anything after the 10th round, you have a $150,000 bonus that would not go to your bonus pool, but anything over that would go to your bonus pool. There's certain penalties if you do go over the bonus pool up to 5%. It's just a tax. It's just a tax on it, so it's not really egregious. Everyone kind of does it. The Angels are known for doing it. Even to the point of being $1 short of that 5% kind of thing. And then you start losing draft picks after that kind of thing. So we haven't really seen that. The one thing that's big is if you don't sign someone from the 1st to 10th round, whatever that draft bonus slot was, you lose that from your bonus pool. So that's a big marker, is that you want to sign, these are things that the teams are discussing right now in the meetings is, where is our money allotment going to work? And I'm going to explain it in my mock draft later. Cleveland has $10.67 million to work with their first overall pick. But if they get a guy that can sign for $9 million, suddenly they have an extra $1.67 million that they could move towards other things. So, you can't trade picks in the draft, but essentially what Cleveland might do is if they go under slot at the first pick and get a guy for $9 million as opposed to 10.67, which I don't think anyone's going to get 10 plus million first pick, but you're going to save money. And if you get that $9 million slot and you put that extra $1.5 million towards your 36 pick, and also use those senior signs I was talking about, 10,000, 50,000 from picks 7, 8, 9, 10. There's an extra 800,000 on top of it. So you could offer almost $4 million to who you take at pick 36. And you can tell agents and players that, say a high schooler that was going to maybe go in the teen picks goes and says, hey, my money dollar. He tells every other team, he says, my money dollar is $5 million. And you get into the slot bonuses that are $3 million, $4 million. And they're like, well, we're not going to take that. We want to save a little bit of money ourselves. And then suddenly you maneuver yourself financially from the 1st and 36th pick to like the 4th overall pick and the 13th overall pick. So it's a financial trade as opposed to an actual trade. And that's where a lot of games are being played right now and a lot of games are being made. So, in the Angels case, they have 6.5 million, somewhere in that range. It's off the top of my head, but 6.5 million with that 8th overall pick. Say they sign a guy for, they get a guy and they get him for $5.5 million. Suddenly you have an extra $1 million that you can move through the rest of your draft. And that's what an underslot would be. Overslot would say the Angels get a guy and sign him for $7 million with that 6.5. They're, $500,000 less. So I know it's a long-winded answer, and I hope it made a little bit of sense. But
dude, that's good.
Yeah, that was great. I mean, I feel smarter now, although I felt dumb throughout.
No. It's, once you've got the number figures in your mind and you understand things, it's like I mentioned Charlie Condon, the Golden Spikes winner, right? There are teams that are picking 6, 7, 8, 9. The Angels have not ruled out Charlie Condon being available at the 8th pick. It's unlikely, but Charlie Condon has a public number, at least perceived. It's not confirmed by the player, agent, anything, but it's perceived that Charlie Condon wants $9.5 million, which would be right in between the 2nd and 3rd pick. So, are the Angels going to go $3 million over their slot to go get Charlie Condon, even if he's falling? And it
if
is
he's available. Yeah.
Right. So that's where you talk about, overslot, underslot, a lot of things. And that's why I didn't write up Charlie Condon in the article.
Right.
For that reason is I don't see the Angels going $3 million over. And I don't see Charlie Condon going from 9.5 million saying, okay, I'll take a $7.5 million deal.
So question on that. Do you think, based on Braden Montgomery's injury, do you think it'd be prudent, and two-part question, do you think he would go under slot because he has a severe ankle injury and he's going to, he may not be able to play until maybe next spring, next summer?
Yeah, it's tough. It's not a severe ankle injury to the point where it's a career-ending injury or anything like that. His draft status is pretty level. Even with the injury, it dropped maybe a little bit. And that's where Braden Montgomery is a top 8 player in this draft. And like I said, the Angels pick at 8 is $6.5 million bonus. So literally, Braden Montgomery could just sit there and say, my bottom dollar is $6.5 million, and just leave it there. And or even if he thinks that he fell, his finances he could say, maybe I fall to 12, maybe I fall to 13. So my bottom dollar is $5 million. And teams are going to play that game. They're going to sit there and say, yeah, okay, that's the number that we have to match or that we have to acquaint. And I don't think, on a talent scale, on a financial scale, I don't see him falling far if he does even fall. I could even see him going as high as the 4th pick. And it's, ankles are scary, but they're a little bit easier to recover from than, say, a hamstring tear or an arm injury for a pitcher.
Right.
So, and that's a big, hamstring is a big thing that's going to be coming up this draft. So, yeah, I think, yes, his stock fell this much, but it was really this much.
And I can attest to the hamstring injuries.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, when you rupture a hamstring like I did on my left leg, I mean, I'm stubborn. I continually play in softball leagues. I played in men's fast pitch leagues early on. And just every year, I mean, second, third, this past softball season, the first game, I get a pull and I'm out. And in my back of my leg turns black and blue. It's the scar tissue. It's that muscle doesn't fully heal. So that's soft tissue, those types of injuries. And you think about the hamstring, I mean, that's your leg. That's your push. That's your speed. That's everything. And so that's a good point. So with that said, JJ Weatherholt had a hamstring injury, but yet he's also one of the best hitters potentially, I mean, in this draft, right? I mean, he could be the best all-around player in this draft.
Absolutely. And if for the course of the season up until probably the midway part of the spring, I would have said he was the best player in this draft. Yeah. And a lot of people agree, and I think even Cleveland would maybe agree with that. He might go first overall. He also might go 9th overall. He might, Angels might even pass because of the hamstring. And that's not saying the Angels have said that out loud, but, the problem with JJ is he's an adequate shortstop. I don't know if he's going to stay at the pace. Major League Baseball is a totally different game than anything else. So staying at the pace of shortstop, he could do it at AAA, but he might not be able to do it at the Major League level. So, but with the hamstring issue, it's West Virginia has that turf field, so it's a little harder to grade because playing on turf is going to put a lot of tension on your lower body. The bigger red flag is that it happened over the summer, not on turf. So it's like he has a hamstring issue, and then the reoccurring issues you may be able to attribute to the turf, but it already happened, right? So there's some health questions, positional value questions kind of thing, but definitely a guy that if he projects on the right track, this is a guy that could be an elite leadoff hitter. He's got speed. He's got incredible contact skills, hits the ball hard. Power is probably his worst offensive tool because he's going to get on base. He doesn't strike out. He walks a lot. Even his power, he hits the ball hard. You're talking about high exit velocities and natural cut that is going to produce power. But you're talking about, 20 home runs, which is for a leadoff guy, heck yeah, right? And especially if he's playing shortstop. I think JJ Weatherholt is, in my opinion, he's the second best player in this draft to Travis Bazzana, who I think is he's not a lock to go number 1, but a lock to go in the top 5 with ease. One of the guys I didn't write up for that reason. But yeah, JJ Weatherholt, if he found a way to fall to 8 and the Angels took him, that is a high profile prospect that you're hoping can stay healthy and project to what his high level projection is, because this is a guy that has Chase Utley-like looks, someone that is really franchise altering from an offensive and player perspective.
So
I like that comp.
Talk a little bit about how the Angels specifically are or should be approaching the draft when they look for the players they're going to go after. Here's what I mean by that. A lot of fans will be listening to this and going, well, why are we looking for a shortstop? We've already got this young Neto guy. We're locked up for a couple years. We should be good. Why are these 3 guys talking about drafting another shortstop into the league? So what is kind of the the war games that the team plays when they're looking at how they are drafting? Is it just about stocking the farm system to see if somebody is the best player available that you go get, and he either develops and he's better than Neto, and now Neto is trade bait, or do they more focus on immediate needs of the organization to bring in people that can play within the next 12 to 24 months?
I think the only time you should be drafting for Major League need is if you are in a playoff chase and you need a reliever. That's the only time I think you should ever draft for necessity.
Right.
It should always be best player available. Now, best player available is going to be different on each team's model, each team's evaluations. But yeah, you should always take the best player available. Now, that's where the finances come in. Maybe instead of getting the best player available, you can get the best 2 or 3 players based on the pick region. And that would be stocking your farm system. For the Angels, it's well aware the Angels farm system is not good. It's not. It's probably the worst in the majors. If it's not, I'd be surprised, but it's probably the worst in the majors. And you need, internal talent. So when this is the first time the Angels have had multiple day one picks or 3 day one picks since Mike Trout, Tyler Skaggs, Garrett Richards, so
yeah.
And sadly, it's not a draft where you're going to get that kind of capital, probably. But yeah, if you can get an impact player with your first pick and then 2 decent role players, maybe a reliever and a bench player even with your second and third pick, I think it's a big win. So, and that's another thing. People think the draft, you're automatically drafting a future star, and your second rounder is going to be an everyday regular. It's just not the case. It does happen, of course. I mean, everyone wants to rule out Mike Piazza. I don't know if anyone knows this, but every team in the majors skipped on him 50 plus times. So,
Right.
I mean, the Mike Trouts of the world, 25 different teams passed on him, and he is undeniably the best player of his generation. So, you have to luck in and you have to develop properly. But if you can get one impact player or one regular everyday player out of a draft, it's successful. And if you get more than that, it's very successful. So with the Angels having a second and a post second round pick and then an early third round pick, 4 picks in the top 80 kind of thing, or 86, 85, whatever it is, you can fill your farm system with prospects. But realistically, I'd be looking to find that impact player, whether it's J.J. Weatherhold, Nick Kurtz, Braden Mug, whoever. I don't care who it is, but I would not go save money with that first pick personally, so I could go and find a little bit higher end value in a second, third kind of thing. I would just let it play naturally. That's me. Just also with the way the draft class is, but yeah, I think it's a really fair question, Jeff, and I think it's important that they find a way to capitalize on having this item that they haven't had in 15 years of having multiple picks and being able to capitalize on it. And realistically, when I talk about the finances, I would try and maybe swing a bigger player to that first pick and maybe tell J.J. Weatherhold, hey, we'll offer you over slot. Maybe tell... I don't think Jack Caglianone is going to be in that category, but, say whoever this guy is that's a better player than the 8th overall pick, I would maybe say, hey, we're going to give you the money, man. Like, don't worry about that, but tell teams that we're going to give you the money and force their hand to pick you above us. Because we have finances. I think the Angels have the 7th or 8th largest bonus pool this year. So... And, you're going to have Arizona. Arizona has picks 29, 31, and 35. So there's a lot of money right there with a lot of talent that you could build on. And that's where I would move my money if I had that kind of scenario of a group of picks in a scattered category in the top 40. But in the Angels scenario, I would absolutely go for who I believe is the best player available. And I would even push further ahead than what I believe the 8th pick is going to be.
Let me ask you, Taylor, if a Hagen Smith or Chase Burns is there, knowing that the Angels probably need that impact middle of the order player, to, with Ohapi and, what we get left of Trout and the Nettos. In looking at the Angels' needs, would you go all in on a good impact arm there, or getting back to the earlier conversation, would you look at the needs as we're really struggling in our farm system? The Angels farm system really has no impact bats whatsoever. They got lucky getting Soriano back, and he's proven to be a great arm. You hope that Detmers can come back and be at least serviceable. Canning's been serviceable back end guy. Or do you just say, screw it, man? If either of those two guys are there, you got to grab them.
It's cheaper to fill in a hitter and a position player than it is to find a pitcher. Now, Chase Burns and Hagen Smith are really special arms. The arm talent alone, you don't find those often. Both of them have reliever risk. Every pitcher has injury risk. Every pitcher has reliever risk, right? Chase Burns throws almost to 102 miles per hour.
Sorry, talk a little bit about, for the fans, to what reliever risk is.
Finding a starting pitcher through development is very hard. Very hard. I know that there are 5 starters in every rotation across 30 teams, right? So that's 150 starters in the majors at any given time. But finding one in your organization that you developed is remarkably challenging. You have to have excellent command of your pitches. You have to have excellent control of your pitches. And you also have to have the durability to throw 100 pitches in an outing. So, and it's changing. Some teams don't look at it that way, and the Angels still have that perception of, hey, 100 pitches is kind of our marker, whether that's 5 innings, 4 innings, 7 innings, whatever it is, right? But you have to have a frame that permits you to fill in your strength, have the strength and mentality to be able to sit with your velocity all the way through your workload, and also have your command all the way through your workload. It's a tough thing. People say hitting is hard. I think pitching is really hard. I think pitching is incredibly hard. Now, you have guys that throw 100 miles per hour with an incredible breaking ball that spins at 3,000 RPMs, but they can't locate the pitch for more than 20 pitches. That's reliever risk. Hagen Smith is a little bit better control, a little bit better command, I would say, than Chase Burns. It's, can he show the ability to do it for 100 pitches? And can he stay healthy? His arm action is very scary. It's a low slot, kind of a slingy stress kind of throughout the whole arm. And that's going to cause injury risk. Every pitcher gets hurt, right? But when you add more to that injury report, it's a little iffier. So I think Hagen Smith could be the best pitcher in baseball. He's got that kind of upside. I would take that risk. I'd take that chance because it's something that would be really hard to pass on. I think a lot of people I've talked to think Josh Hader is a comparison I hear. Andrew Miller is one I hear a lot, even though he's like 3 inches shorter. Andrew Miller was a giant of a man,
right.
But he has the power he has the pitches to miss bats. There's no denying, and he has the power to do it at the major league level pretty quickly. It's, can he stay strong enough? Can he find the zone regularly enough and command? Because there's a big difference between control and command. Control is just the ability to throw strikes. Command is the ability to throw it where you want. Chase Burns, similar situation. He throws really hard with a really good breaking ball. Changeup is decent, and he throws strikes, but the command. And he's shown the ability to hold that velocity. I think Chase Burns is a little bit safer, even though there's more violence in the arsenal. I think he's a little bit safer. But either way, those are 2 arms that, if you get everything to click, and I got to say the Angels have done a good job at developing arms. For as bad as the bats have been, they've done a good job with arms. So I think, if you have an option of Chase Burns and Hagen Smith, and you see a frontline starter that, whether you use the term ace or number 1 or number 2 even, these are guys that are going to be very impactful to your rotation, even if it's not every day. So I would definitely take the chance on either of those guys. Also, solid chance neither of those guys are available. And Trey Savage is the next guy in line, another guy that has reliever risk and has some injury risk. He had a collapsed lung earlier this spring, which was crazy. It's not going to be a lingering thing by any means. I probably shouldn't even brought it up, but it's just like, Trey Savage is another guy I would see a little more comfortably. Maybe not the upside of Smith and Burns, but definitely a guy I could see as a starter down the road. He's got the frame for it. He's got the natural command, at least presently. So yeah, those are three guys I would definitely buy in on. And if I was going quote unquote underslot, I guess Savage would be my primary target, even above maybe even Nick Kurtz. Even above that, I would probably look at Trey Savage personally.
Also on the line of reliever risk, you're also talking about arms that starting pitchers in college or high school that maybe only have two good pitches and they're in the developmental stage of a changeup or a third pitch. That's an accurate take, right?
And that's a common.
Because you need really to have at least three pitches, right? Decent pitches. Yeah.
At least. And that's a common thing. I mean, these guys are, the oldest of the group is going to be 22, right? And I'm not saying of that group, but like the oldest player you're going to see drafted might be 24, maybe 24. So it's like, these are kids. Some of them can drink, most of them can't, right? It's finding that third pitch is definitely something that happens in development. And that's why I like lengthy developments for players. I like seeing time spent on players. And that's why I think, even though they're not finding as much success right now, I think the St. Louis Cardinals are one of the best organizations in baseball. The New York Yankees have proven time and time again, they haven't won a World Series in 15 years, but time and time again, the New York Yankees, the Los Angeles Dodgers, you don't see them be. How many times have you heard the Dodgers are holding a prospect in AAA? Right, Bobby Miller needs to be up now. Landon Knack needs to be up now. Cody Bellinger needs to be up now. It's like, no, they are developing so that they can be established major leaguers. And aggression is fine if it works, but if it doesn't, I go back. I take the step back and develop. And that's where I think a long development, especially for pitchers, is vital. So, and like you said,
they're also not as desperate as the Angels.
No,
they have a stacked farm system.
They do. They do. Well, and that's where money in development is a big issue. And that is, I can't criticize the front office for that. I get criticized that they should argue for it more. They should pound away at ownership to put more money into it. But ownership has to put more money into development and focus on a lot of things on that side, personally.
And on that front, Victor spoke to that, was it 2 episodes ago, where he drilled home on the Angels not investing fully within the entire organization, and especially, in development, in scouting. And what's your take on that, Taylor? If you started tomorrow, what would be the number one thing that you would do to change things up to get these guys on a better track forward?
Money towards development, absolutely. The Dodgers pick 30th every year, right?
Yeah.
They pick 20th or later. And yes, they have good scouts because they spend money on good scouts and experienced scouts, but the Angels have great scouts. Look at what they've done with what they have, right? They're finding talent in not only overpay high schoolers and power arms in the 13th round, but you look at some of these guys that are nobodies. And their scouting department stays on them because they have a track record. Riley Bowman is a big one for me. Riley Bowman threw 2 total innings in college. And he's a pro prospect. He's a legitimate prospect. And he's a 13th rounder that no one saw. But KJ Hendricks stayed on top of him as a scout. So I'm not going to criticize the scouting department with the Angels by any means. But you have to put money into developing these guys. The Dodgers, like I said, they pick at 25 every year. And I hate comparing the Dodgers and the Angels because it's why, right? But I mean, you put money into it, you put time and effort into it, and it breeds what it is. The Yankees pick 20th every year. The Astros pick. Hell, the Astros didn't have picks for a couple years, and they're still producing. So no, I think if you put the proper money where it needs to be, then you're doing the right thing. And I'm not going to criticize Angel Scouts under any circumstance because I think they've done a really good job with what they have. And I think development's done a good job with what they have, but you have to put forth so much more into it. And I think that's number one priority I'm going to have is internal growth. It has to be internal growth. And, Major League, if it wasn't for Major League Baseball stepping in with salaries and housing, these kids would still be 5'6" to an apartment, making bottom dollar trying to eat, hot dogs and hamburgers as much as they can. And I'm not saying that's just the Angels, but you know what I mean.
Right.
Sure. It's wild. The development piece of baseball, I think, is so unique to the other three major sports, right? Like we just had the NBA draft a week or so ago, and those guys come in, and there's 2 rounds, right? Like every team gets like 2 guys, one
60
guy
picks, 62
right,
picks,
one guy to 3 guys, depending on what they've traded over the years, but you bring them in and you know right where you're going to put these guys. And if a guy doesn't click in a year, and sometimes it's not even a year, sometimes it may be a couple of months, you're gone. But baseball, there's this nurturing that needs to happen. And it's not just what's on the field at the major league ballparks. It's what's happening in Salt Lake and in Double A and in Single A and in the summer leagues and all of that's where you build what ends up hopefully being on the major league field.
Absolutely. I mean, you mentioned the NBA, right? It's immediate impact for need. NFL, if you need a quarterback, you get a quarterback. You need a tackle, you need to get a tackle.
Right.
But the only one I would say is similar of the major sports is the NHL draft.
Yes.
Even the NHL draft, you have your top 10 picks pretty regularly straight into the NHL.
Right.
And not like role players, but straight in. But yeah, you have to develop at the NHL level, but it's still only, I mean, you could include juniors, you could include overseas and stuff, but realistically, it's only 2 levels. If you have a prospect that's in the ECHL or quote unquote double A hockey, the guy's not seeing the NHL.
Right. Right.
But yeah, it's a tough thing. Baseball is definitely proven to be one of the hardest to develop talent and have immediate talent. And the gap from Major League Baseball to lower level baseball is significant. Jaden Daniels is someone that I covered really regularly and kind of drew close to. And, people ask me a lot about Jaden Daniels, who went to the, I can't remember, not the Redskins, not the Washington Football Club, but whatever they're called now, right? That team in DC. I don't know if he's ready. And I'm not an NFL scout by any means, but it's like he's small, he's quick, he can stay with the pace, but it's like, can his decision making and his strength match up with NFL speed? That is a guy that you're already setting in stone that he is the cornerstone of your franchise. He's the guy you ride or die for the next 5 years. He's gonna take you to the Super Bowl, win championships. With baseball, you take the Jaden Daniels of baseball, right? He starts in Single A. Right. And you're not going to see the majors for 2-3 years. So that's where baseball, the gap level between the talent, talent-wise, I think on a raw talent perspective, players that are in Double A have major league talent. I will not question that. It's a talent, but the execution, the regular ability to execute is the difference. But, you talk about pace of game, talent level, execution, and ability to do it on a regular clip. That's why starting pitchers are so hard, is the ability to do it for so long. That's where baseball is such a different beast when it comes to amateur versus professional, and not only professional, but highest level of professional in Major League.
Before we switch gears off the draft here, Taylor, I want to ask you, is there any chance whatsoever that the Angels would draft a high schooler with their first pick in the draft?
Absolutely. Actually, I wouldn't be surprised by any means. There is a reason I wrote in William Schmidt. And I didn't put him as an underslot. Because William Schmidt is a guy that probably could be someone that, like, Cleveland takes from the 15th and moves him to the 36th pick. He's someone that could even see the compensation round. Wow. Right-handed prep pitchers are the riskiest of all demographics. because they're so raw product and injury risk and among other things, and also just, track record. But genuinely, I think William Schmidt is a legitimate target for the Angels. He might not be priority, and we're going to find out. Angels went to the draft combine, had their conversations. We don't know how those conversations went, but a lot dictates right there with what's the attitude, what's the makeup of the kid. And then draft meetings are happening this week, not for the Angels alone, but for most teams this week. So I would not be surprised if someone like William Schmidt or Cam Caminiti, a left-handed pitcher from Arizona, who's Ken's cousin, Ken Caminiti. He won the MVP in 95, 96 or something with San Diego. But either way, Bryce Rayner is a local infielder. I don't want to call him a shortstop because personally, I'm the low man on Bryce Rayner, and I think I'm the low man. Talking to pretty much a lot of people, I'm the lowest on him. But yeah, I think the Angels have legitimate interest in Bryce Rayner. I think there's legitimate interest in a lot of prep players. I think Connor Griffin is the one I would probably say I believe is not in the mix for the Angels pick. Total massive upside. Could be, a Ronald Acuna star level. He's an incredible baseball player, or incredible tools. But I don't.
Or it could be Joe Adell.
Actually, you know what? Joe Adell is not the worst outcome for what this kid is.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, someone that ends up being a top prospect because of what he does in the minors, but I just don't know if he's going to hit. I don't know. And that's something you have to be honest about. It is a lot of people will say, "Oh, I think." It's like I just don't know. So when it comes to Connor Griffin, I don't know. And the Angels, I don't. Based on my conversations, I don't know if the level of interest is there compared to the other prep players.
A lot of risk.
But I absolutely believe that there's prep players in the motion right now in that line of players at the first pick. I think in the second and third pick, I definitely think they are interested in some prep players, and some in particular if they are available.
Last question on the draft. Who would you be shocked that the Angels could get with their second pick?
Shocked with their second pick?
Yeah, like if somebody fell, or somebody that you're eyeing, or somebody that's a sleeper that you're like, man, if the Angels can nab this guy because he's flying under the radar with their second pick in the draft, give me a name. And is he in the article? He's not in the article.
There is one in the article, and I don't see him falling that far. Kalen Culpepper, Kansas State shortstop.
Okay.
There are just no shortstops in this draft. There's no one that's going to stick at shortstop. And Kalen Culpepper is the top guy that has a chance to stay at shortstop. So I just don't see him falling 46 picks. I don't think he's going to be someone that, and I wrote him up as a potential target at 8th because the Angels do like him. They really do like him. It's pretty open that they like him. But I don't see him being an 8th overall talent. And also, he's not a lock to stay at shortstop either. But yeah, I think there's a lot of teams that are looking at him in the 25 to 40 range kind of thing. And at that point, you're only talking about him falling, 6 spots, right?
Right.
And as a college bat, financially, it's not like he's going to crazily move the needle in the wrong direction. You could get him for a round slot, right? Yeah, I think if he were to fall, he would be someone the Angels would definitely be. He'd be near the top of the Angels board at the 46th pick. I think he'd be a little lower on the 8th pick comparatively. There is one kid that I've heard a strong attachment to when it came to the Angels, and I thought that they were going to take him at like 75, 76 if he was available. Now it's sounding like he might even go in the first round, so I don't know. Luke Dickerson, a 2-sport stud out of New Jersey area. Really a well-rounded offensive player who probably isn't a shortstop, but obviously plays shortstop because he's a good athlete on a high school team and the best player on this high school team. So he's going to play shortstop. That's how it works. But, non-zero chance. But Luke Dickerson, really quick hand. He's a hockey player. And I think they won the state championship in hockey. It's Morris Knowles' program, and I think they won the state championship in hockey. But quick hands on the ice, and quick hands on the field, both at shortstop and on the plate.
Wow.
Really strong, real physical, plays like a hockey player on the baseball field, but advanced. He's not a high school kid on the field. He looks like a physical, pro-ready body and pro-ready player. But right now, if I were to say, I was believing he was going to be like their 70, whatever their pick in the 70s is kind of pick, or whatever that is, 60s round kind of area. Now I'm thinking, I don't know if he makes it to 46. There are a lot of teams that suddenly, because they play longer into the season, longer into the spring, they play up in the Northeast. So, all the late looks for those Northeast kids, they suddenly start to rise on draft boards. But yeah, I mean, I could rattle off 50 names for you, but I think there are some guys in the Big 12. I'll just go with Big 12 infielders that should probably be monitored, and also some Northeast prep players is where I would probably, without going with direct names, I would just say those are the two demographics I would feel a little bit confident in saying I think they're going to take someone from that with their second, third, fourth pick.
And to your point earlier, Jeff, where you mentioned why would the Angels even draft a shortstop since they have Neto? Yeah, I mean, the thought there is that if you get a shortstop or center fielder, especially a shortstop, you can move that athletic player around, right? They're good enough to move around.
What's the? I mean, would you rather have two good players at one position or two bleh players? Say JJ Weatherholt, right? We'll use him as the example. Say Weatherholt can stay at shortstop. He can stay at shortstop, and he reaches the majors in 2 years. Zach Neto is 3 years, 4 years removed from free agency, right? You've got a middle infield duo. You're going on. If you're playing this properly, you're putting the best player on the field, no matter what the position is. Yeah. You can DH him. I don't care. But you put the best player on the field, regardless of what it is. And it's something you worry about when the time comes.
Right.
Maybe, say you have Adley Rutschman, and you also have Logan O'Hoppe as Adley Rutschman's backup. Sure. Maybe you don't target catchers, right? Maybe you move off the catching position, but it's to that degree, you don't draft for necessity by any means, or just take the best guy. Yeah. It's that simple, in my opinion, and I think most would agree with me on that too.
I think it's helpful for fans to understand that, though, the difference between that you're not drafting for need necessarily in Major League Baseball. Again, to your point, unless you're on the precipice of, we just need a piece to push this thing over, that you're drafting to stock a system, and that you're going to nurture guys along the way, and all kinds of things can happen, from injuries to moving players around, to trading them for other assets. So
it's to enhance the entire organization. And I'm sorry for missing that question, Jeff. And it's an important question.
No, that's good.
And but like I was saying, Jaden Daniels, Washington needed a quarterback. The Angels might need a quarterback, but you don't need to go and draft a quarterback to fill that spot.
Sure.
And it was a very important question. I'm sorry that I glazed over it.
It's fine. I try to make this, as opposed to just the three of us sitting around, again, with the inside baseball stuff, knowing that there's people listening that they're like, what are they talking about? I want to make sure that we're providing that context to folks.
Logan O'Hoppe is our quarterback.
Yeah,
indeed.
He is.
You kidding me? That guy is a stud.
Yeah. He is a dude. And there's stuff coming out now in the media that says that he's actually grabbed a hold of the clubhouse as the clubhouse leader. And I could totally see that. I interviewed him 2 years ago in Rocket City, and that guy was a dude. I mean, I got some good hands, and I feel like I work out. But I looked at this guy, and he was like a fucking god just coming out to greet me.
The first thing I got when they traded for him, right? I texted a scout, said, "What's the skivvy? Just give me a brief." He says, leader. It was a one-word answer, leader. That was it. And then he gave me more on top of it. And I put it out there. I said, I tweeted it out. I said, Logan, I've only seen Logan O'Hoppe in the Arizona Fall League. So hey, yeah, this kid can hit. I can read. I've seen him once. Like, I can't put out a report, right? But I can sit there and I put out, I said, good bat, good power, can catch, long term, good leader. And I had like 5 people that are like, how do you know he's a good leader? And I'm like, oh. That would be Instagram, boys. I will be right back. You enjoy your conversation.
No, but on that point though, Jeff, it's really like you need one of those guys, and if you can get one via a trade or even develop one, dude. I mean, and let's face it. I mean, Mike Trout is a superstar. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer, but he's not a clubhouse leader, and that's fine because that's not his personality.
Right.
And it's not a knock on him whatsoever. So if anybody hears this podcast and thinks like, well, Mike Trout should be the leader. No. I mean, Torrey Hunter isn't going to be a Hall of Famer. Was he a leader? Absolutely. Yep. It's just like people are born
gifts, and you want them
they have gifts
authentically themselves. And some people are authentic leaders. And boy, when you can find that person and they happen to be in the catcher's position,
oh, God.
Crap, that's huge.
Can you imagine if Mike Scioscia was the manager with Logan O'Hoppe on his team? Dude, he'd be just creaming. I mean, it's just, God.
No, Chuck.
Sorry.
Charles Aloysius Richter.
You know what? Mike Scioscia would be like, you know what? You just take over, Logan. I mean, he's that good. And then you add Zach Neto to the equation. Mm-hmm. I feel like Zach Neto is equally a good leader. He puts it out on the field. He's vocal in the clubhouse. Man, the Angels did good by getting these guys, in the draft with Neto and O'Hoppe with the trade. It sucked losing Marsh, but dude, I'll take a power hitting catcher that's the leader of the clubhouse over an outfielder any day of the week. So
I'm very biased when it comes to catchers because I grew up a catcher and a third baseman, and catching was, my dad always believed in the catcher. Mike Scioscia was always his guy, right? And even before that, but it's catching to be able to quarterback. This is my concept of it, and I don't have anything that the Angels have told me about this, but I lock them up right away. Right away, I lock them up. And I thought, I know Max Stassi, and that was a personal reason and everything like that, but I understood signing Max Stassi long term. I thought Max was similar, a leader. And I ran across Max Stassi in 2012 when I was working with High Desert, and he remembered me 10 years later. Right. And I was just like, or not 10 years, but however long later. And you get a guy that can run it, I don't care if he hits, right? If he can catch and have a good relationship with your pitchers and take care of the clubhouse, your catcher is the most important thing. Martin Maldonado, incredible, right?
100%.
He can't hit worth a lick, but he's incredible. And he's always going to value above what his playing is. But Logan O'Hoppe can hit. I mean, he can hit. So I would give him quick money. I really would. And
your stat that you threw out on X a couple of days ago of Logan O'Hoppe in late inning situations or pressure situations, that slugging percentage just blew my mind.
700 plus slugging.
Yeah, that was just like, what the heck?
And I got to be open about that. I did the math myself based on that game. Right, I added the home run to that game kind of thing, and I have a basic concept of what Baseball Reference claims is high leverage versus non-high leverage, so I basically just took his 1-for-4 from the previous and put him into the medium leverage thing, but that 1-for-1 with the home run and added into high leverage, it's like, yeah, he's hitting at the similar clip, he's getting on base at a similar clip, but he's slugging 400 points higher take the home run away, he's still slugging 300-400 points higher. The guy is
absolutely.
I would lock him up. And I don't have anything that the Angels have told me on anything on that front, but absolutely 100%. I lock him up and make him a franchise staple. He gets the home plate. It's Mike Trout on the left, Logan O'Hoppe on the right. He gets those two posters.
Let me ask you this. Let's shift gears real quick, Taylor, from the draft and all that. Do you think the Angels should extend Luis Rengifo? To me, personally, my opinion is they should, unless they're going to get a good haul of close impact prospects.
I don't think I'd worry about it yet. He's got 2 more years under. He's got at least next year.
I think he's just got next year. That's it.
I wouldn't worry about it until next year, because the guy obviously can hit, and he's improved with his hitting style, and he can change the game with one swing kind of thing, and he can change the game
or on the bases.
Yeah, on the bases, and he can be a body at 7 different positions. I'm not going to say he's a good defender at any of them, but he's a body at all 7.
I think he's improved at third base. I don't know if you've seen him a lot lately, but he's looked really good at third base.
I think he's good at third, and I think you could push him over to left, and he'd be fine. Maybe even right, and be fine.
Well, even second base, he's good enough.
I don't, and that's the thing. He's not bad, but I don't think he's good, and that's where I kind of
okay.
Yeah, and that's my opinion, But I just don't think you have to worry about it yet. That's the way I would look at it. Me personally, I wouldn't think about it yet. He's 26, 27. He's 26 years old, so he's going to be a free agent at 20. Well, shoot. Free agent at 27, he might make some good money. Yeah, maybe now is the right time and get a little bit of a discount.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. No,
lock him up or get out of here.
I'd like to see more consistency personally, but you're running out of,
Well, and that's what I think this year he's kind of done.
Right.
He's been really consistent this year. Last year, the year before, they were in spurts, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
and
power.
I think the other thing is, I'm asking for consistency, but there's only 2.5 months left of the season. And those 2.5 months aren't going to dictate my opinion one way or another drastically. So, yeah, if you can get him and this is such a cop-out cliche, but you get him at the right price or you trade him at the right price. And whatever that right price is where I would lean. But maybe I'm not so much into an immediate extension for him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Jeff, what do you feel about the farm system? That's fair. So
let me feel about the farm system.
Let me ask you, Taylor. Aside from Caden Dana, I mean, in Nelson Rada, I think he was. I don't think he should have started in Double-A. I mean, let's face it. He's struggling. I mean, he's a singles hitter. He's not going to hit for any pop. I don't know, but the Angels don't have any productive. They don't have any offensive players of mind, at least what I've seen, to be excited about. Adrian Palencia's look kind of okay. There's some other guys way far off if you want to look at the Dominican League, but there's nothing soon coming in. And Kyron Paris, Jordan Adams have kind of not progressed.
Yeah, a lot of people have taken steps back, at least performance-wise. There's some tweaks going on that change things, but performance-wise, everyone, for the most part, has taken a step back, right? Nelson, I think this was a question I was talking about with Nelson last September. I said, what do you do with him next year? Because Tri-City, they're great people, great staff, horrendous development environment. Horrible. You can't get any read on the development.
It's a dust bowl.
You can't hit there, and apparently, I mean, you can't pitch there. It's ridiculous. So, are you going to send an 18-year-old that needs to find power to a field where if you hit one home run for the year, you found power? It's like, and you just couldn't send him to Tri-City. It was almost impossible. And it's like, do you repeat him in Inland Empire? Do you repeat Inland Empire? Do you scatter him between Arizona, Inland Empire, and Rocket City? It's like, what do you do with him, right? So I kind of sat there and thought, Rocket City is not the worst thing for Nelson Rada. And the thing I will say about Nelson, he had like 100 plate appearances where he was hitting 300. And it was consecutive. It was consistent. It was regular. And then he made a minor tweak, started swinging a little harder, and was missing a ton. And he got a little injury, day-to-day kind of stuff. I would like to see him just go back to focusing on not performing, but just playing. Just go out and play. Nothing more. Develop by nature, right? And if he does that, I actually think he's still the same guy that we saw last year. But I think there's some development things that I would sit there and say, let's just step back and let this kid go play. That's fine, whatever they want to do with him, and maybe in the long run it works. But for now, kid turns 19 in a month and a half. Right. He's 19. It's not even. Yeah. So, yeah, Nelson's still a real prospect for me. I know he's hitting like way around his weight. Well, I'd say around his weight, but he only weighs like $160. So I'm not gonna say. But
thankfully, he's not.
Yeah. But I said if he was anywhere near league average on performance, it's a total win. He is definitely below that right now. I think it's like a 70 weighted runs created plus, something like that. But Denzer Guzman is a guy that I think has taken a step forward. He really struggled. He has all the tools to be a good hitter and a good shortstop, and the shortstop tools are still, all the defensive tools are still there. Hitter wise, he's always had the hitterish look, but just hasn't pieced it together and really struggled with breaking balls from right-handed pitchers because it's the same side breaking ball, right? Or same side off speed. I think he's made improvements. I know that he's still striking out a little bit, but he's performing right around league average as a 20-year-old in Double-A. I think Denzer Guzman has actually really increased his value and is probably the third best prospect in the system behind Rada and Dana. I like Barrett Kent a lot. He hasn't pieced everything together yet, but I think the tools are there to be a good starting pitcher. Juan Flores, I know that his move to Tri-City has been awful. I think he's like 0 for 12 with like 11 strikeouts. He's very overmatched. 3 games, 4 games, I'm not going to whatever. But
right.
What he was showing as an 18-year-old who should not have been in Single-A was really impressive. He was hitting, double his weight, OPS above 8 consistently. It wasn't just a hot start. It was a consistent offensive performance for a guy that is not an offensive player. So I really believe in Juan Flores being an impactful defender and player at the major league level. But after that, like you said, Adrian Placencia is still striking out 30% of the time with a revert to low A as opposed to high A. Dario Laverde is a tough one. Dario Laverde, I don't know if he's a catcher. I genuinely don't. I know he's developing as a catcher. Just he was a converted outfielder, and I feel like if you moved him to the outfield, he'd maybe be a little bit better of a hitter. I know his early season he was hitting atrociously on paper, but he was hitting the ball 100 plus pretty much every time he made contact. And I'll take a 30% strikeout rate with that kind of raw batted ball data kind of thing. Underlying numbers, there are a few guys that are interesting. But yeah, it's pretty bad. All in around it's fairly bad. So this draft is very important to bring in talent.
Right.
Pitchers I'm not that worried about. Pitchers are going through different things through the system, and the Angels have proven that they know what they're doing on development with pitchers. So it's just hitters. They've got to find a way to develop hitters in a better style.
Jeff, final thoughts.
Yeah, good stuff. I guess my final thought or thing I want to throw over to Taylor to kind of wrap up is tell the fans a little bit about the Sporting Tribune and where they can find you both on that site and on X.
So the last 48 hours, Sporting Tribune made a major overhaul on what we are on a website basis, and I am adjusting. So, essentially what Sporting Tribune was just a startup from a Ross Marchese who was with ESPN, LA Times, high-level media personality. And we were bringing in a lot of kids that just wanted to grow. We were a development writing staff. And now we have brought in high-level professionals, and we're very excited about the staff that we have. I don't want to compare ourselves to the Athletic, but basically it was an Athletic-esque kind of startup that is now turning into a high-level media outlet that is focused on multimedia. And that's something that I have to adjust to because I'm a writer. I'm a journalist, right? That's my thing. So we're making some adjustments, but I love it. We have an outstanding staff, especially on the baseball side and especially on the Angels side. Taylor Ari is one of our younger writers that I think is going to be a superstar as a writer. Brandon Deutsch is a multimedia genius. I'm calling Anthony Batista is going to go to MLS and do great things. We have some really special people. Michael Huntley, who does SoCal News Group. He's joined us with the SoCal News Group, so he does high school football, prep football and things. But just I really like with the staff that we have, and I've moved positions from full-time writing to a director role. So it's more in my role is a little bit more of making sure that these guys are doing their job and assessing that, taking care of the business at that end. And I get to also do journalism while doing it. So I love it. But cool. I'm really happy. I haven't been as happy in a long time when it comes to covering baseball and having these members of our team that create this happiness really just changes the way that I've done things. Because you guys understand it. Covering baseball has its lapses for sure. And there was, when I got let go in 2017 with Scout and 24/7 and Fox and everything, I was ready to walk away. No denying it. I was ready to walk away. And Baseball America has helped me out on that front. And I'm doing some things with Baseball America this week, but it was definitely a period of time where I hated it. I just had no interest in covering baseball, and now my love for it is back, and I have the Sporting Tribune and our staff to thank for that. So, Chuck, you've been a huge part of this too, and I appreciate you letting me come on and do some things with you guys at Angels Win, and I love it, and it's a blast to do. But I'm really happy with what we've done over at the Sporting Tribune, and as I adjust to multimedia and social media and things like that, because I'm, outside of X, Twitter, whatever, I'm not a TikTok guy. Instagram is
I'm not either.
Instagram is very much private, and I will never give out my handle on Instagram publicly to people I don't know. So, it's social media is not necessarily my item, and growing into the social media market and watching kids that know what they're doing on that front is pretty exciting. So, I still consider myself a kid to some degree. I won't give away my age, and I won't take my hat off to expose the gray, but I'm just very happy. I know I went long-winded with it, but very happy with what the Sporting Tribune has become and will be.
That's great.
Good. So we'll have you back on, Taylor. Let's wrap it up. I have more questions, right? But we're well over an hour, and we'll have you back on for part 2.
You let me know. You let me know when.
Awesome. And thank you for joining.
Taylor on X. Actually, you can find the Sporting Tribune on X at Sporting Trib. Their website is thesportingtribune.com, and you can find Taylor on X at Taylor Blake Ward. So again, thank you for joining us. Happy birthday, America. I know there's a lot of you listening to us right now. This will be your last podcast listening to us with 10 fingers. So try to be careful out there. Great country, but we want y'all come back in one piece. So to our country, gentlemen.
Were you playing music?